this is Marshall PC Warvash again, out at the field office, aka Big Pop-Up. I'm on a few groups on Facebook and pop-up forums, and they're always asking questions about what does this do, how does this go up, etc. And some of them have never owned a pop-up before the whole COVID thing hit. So, and I think a lot of them are used, and they may not even have owner's manual. Some of them do. I was lucky I had owner's manual in mine, but that don't mean everybody else got paperwork with theirs. So, I looked at all the questions, and I said, I think I'll make a video about that, and try to make it as short and sweet but comprehensive as possible on different stuff. My camper has stabilizers, not jacks. They're nice. I mean, I could probably, but they're stabilizers. I either hand crank them or use my electric drill. Either one's just as quick. So, enough of me being on camera. I did a little quick look at my stabilizer down here, and then we're going to go inside and start with the inside. That's my stabilizer. It's very nice. I like them. Quite substantial. Now, I'm going to turn around. We're going to go through the door. Now, on these old Colemans, but this is Somerset after Coleman was bought out. But it's the same basic design, and all the parts fit. That's on a Utah. Got the pop-out dinette and the slide and all that. So now we're going on the inside. And first question is, this is my swing down dinette, or my swing down sink. This right here is the kill switch. This one runs my water pump. Okay? So if you look up here at this light right there, I'm going to try to keep it in focus. It's kind of hard picking up the sink, but anyway, I'm going to drop this sink gently, and this light should come on if I got it turned on. See there? Came right on. So that's the kill switch, is now in place with the swing up galleys on it. Not going to push that because I didn't bother to fill up the water, the hot water tank. Don't want to burn my pump up. That right there is the inside plumbing to the outside shower. Okay? These are things you got to check sometimes, because water is the enemy of the pop-up. This is my box right here. My converter box. This is your power side, the 120. This is your 12 volt side. These are automobile fuses. This runs the air conditioner, which is a 20 amp, and your outlets. Other than that, it really don't run a whole lot. Your outlets, your AC, your lights up here, those are 12 volt. Your kill switch is 12 volt. Your water pump is 12 volt. Okay? Then down here, that switch right there is the igniter switch that turns on the gas for the hot water tank, which is right there. It's hot water tank, and that is a cutoff valve for it. Okay, let's see, where are we at? Fire extinguisher, plugs, outlet converter boxes, water fittings. Now, this is the toilet shower. We don't use the shower too much in here, but we do use the toilet. The cassette toilet is awesome. As far as I'm concerned, it's awesome. People don't like them, but it's people's choices. This right here is the access panel to this inside shower. Well, I replaced that already because it was broke. So you got to check the fittings, make sure they don't leak, you just take out them 4 little screws and it'll come right out. This is the heater. There's a reset switch in there. And my sink, which I love. Some people hate them, but that's fine. But it's a pretty nice sink and it's pretty deep. And my inside stove, I do cook on. I just open this window right here and we're all good. My little refrigerator is a 3-way. I just replaced this, which is my new LP gas. They last about 5 years. And then I put that little doohickey in right there. It's a little monitor. That's how I monitor my battery. And got a couple USBs in there and a digital thermostat. I took the round thing off. Alright, let's see. And all of those are 12 volts. Every piece in there is 12 volts. Only the shore power that runs is the AC, and it has a battery trickle in there, so it'll help recharge the battery on the front of the camper. Runs the power outlets and helps recharge the battery in the converter box. And the rest of it's 12 volt power. Now we're going outside. It's a bit cool out here. It's nice and breezy. And we're going to walk around. Now this is a 20 amp plug. That's for my air conditioner. And that's the 20 amp plug that it plugs into. This will run off shore power. And it will also run off my little 2500 watt Champion generator, because on top where the AC unit is, I put a Micro Air Easy Start in there. So let's see what I want to do next on this outside. Alright, let's get the crawling out. I'm going to push up in here. There's some wiring. This big panel is the wiffle tree. Behind here is the actual tree. It has a screw that runs the complete length of this. And it has 4 attachments in here for the cables. So you can adjust your cables. You also grease these cables up under here. I use red grease till I get to here. And then I use a white lithium grease on this wheel. And this little cotter pin, there's a hole here. There's a couple holes. Yeah, there's 3 holes. And this will move this wheel around if you have to adjust the height. But you can also adjust your cable length in your wiffle tree. One of them does pretty big adjustment. The other one is for like micro adjusting. Here's another picture of my let's see, what do you call them things? My stabilizer bars, and it's got a big old worm screw right here. Now I'll coat that with some white lithium grease too. But while I'm under here, this plug runs to the trailer, the battery. This is my lift plug to the lift motor. If the motor goes bad and you have to hand crank this thing, which I hope I never have to do, but if you do, you unplug this. You have to get the power out of it, and then you got a hole right here, and you come in from the outside with your actual hand cranker, and there's this knob right here, and you start hand cranking. Alright, I think that about covers that. Yeah, it just did. Yeah, and don't have your shore power plugged in when you're cranking it up. Don't have your shore power plugged in when you're using that motor. It's a 12 volt motor, because it will screw it up, so you don't want to do that. Now, I saw a thing on Facebook about my beds fell down. Alright, well, on this stabilizer bar there's a lip here, and it locks into this stud. So just make sure this is locked in, and when you come in, make sure this hasp is locked on the other side of this wheel. It comes down, has like a little U shape in there, and it locks everything solid in place. And then you've got your bungees that come in and hook right there. There's 4 of them on each side, and that pretty much secures up that issue about the side of the bunk. I've got them undone, but you see them, they all hook onto those little hooks. This right here, if you don't do anything right, please do this right. Make sure to check, double check, triple check. That's what holds your roof in place when the roof is in the closed position. You leave them hooked up and you got trouble coming your way. This is the toilet. It is actually a separate water holding tank right here. I believe it holds about 5 gallons of water. This is what you call your cassette, or in the big RV world, this is your black water tank for this little thing. It holds about 5 gallons. It slides right up in there. When you want to dump it, you just roll it out, open it up, and it's got a little air thing on top I got here. This is your air release, this button right here. This is your dump valve. You unscrew this cap, press this right there, and then you can dump it in the toilet. Into your black. If you got a full camp up, you just walk over there and dump it into the septic. Or you can wait till you get home and take it in your house and dump it. I like it. It's a nice little compact unit. It's pretty light, so it's all good. Then you shove it back up in there, close it up. Now, let me see what was next. Mine is gas and 12 volt. This red is the igniter. That's run off 12 volt. So when it's filled up, you open this up, and as the tank fills in from the bottom, it forces air up. So you want to bleed that air off. So you just open this up, and you'll hear it go till eventually water will come out there, and then you just close it down. I have an anode rod that I change once a year, whether it needs it or not. And that heats up. So we got LP coming in here, 12 volt igniter here. It lights up, and then the burn chamber is right next to here, and it heats that water up in about 20 minutes, and you're ready to rock and roll. A couple reset switches in here, and that about takes care of the LP gas, or the LP. I got a 2-tank system. This right here is so I can switch from one tank to the other. When you turn these tanks on, if you turn them on super fast, it'll freeze the valve, and sometimes you won't get, even in the summertime, because LP is cold, it'll freeze the valve. You won't get no gas in it. So when you turn it on, just turn it on nice and easy. Okay? Slow, so it don't freeze up. This is my battery. It's got an inline circuit here, so hopefully that blows before anything else does. Down here, connected to this cable, is the brake switch in case it ever comes disconnected. This gets jerked out by the truck, engages the brakes, which is also a 12 volt system. So you gotta have your battery hooked up to make your brakes work. I see people on that forum say, I don't need a battery. If you got brakes, you need a battery. Because if it ever gets disconnected from your truck, this pulls out, you no longer have power to your trailer. This is your power. That battery kicks them electric brakes in, and your trailer's going to stop instead of killing somebody. Alright, that's about that. On a blunt, easy, whatever you want to call it, that's the thing. Don't have that, you got brakes, your trailer gets disconnected and it could kill somebody. Now, this is my 7-pin switch. This is the top. When it pushes into the truck, the cap on the truck side comes down and overlaps this switch, so it won't pull out of its socket. I really like that. This exhaust port for the inside heater says hot. Okay, this is the drain. I put a little elbow here, and I have a tank that I can drain it in if I'm either boondocking or someplace where I can't just do whatever I want to do. I have a tank. This is your city water. I run everything through a filter. Comes up here, and this is my pressure reducer so it don't blow the inside PEX plumbing. Then it comes through here and goes in here. Now this will operate the sink, but it'll also go to that hot water tank and fill that up. So if you want hot water, flip the switch, nodder hits, gas comes on, heats your hot water tank up, so you got hot and cold water. Now, I have a hard time with this refrigerator because I can't see the reflection on a sunny day like this. So what I usually do, right here is the 12 volt switch. This is operated, no, this is 120. So when I get to the campground and eventually get plugged into shoulder power, I hit 120 and keep it on 120 all day. Then, at dusk or dark when it starts getting a little bit lighter, I can see that pilot light because the flame is not a super strong flame. So I come down here, and this is only one source of power at a time. So when I decide I want to go to LP, off goes the 120. Make sure the 12 volts is off. Now what I do, there's a little window right here. It's a little viewing window, and it swings, and I tape it up out the way so I can look in here. Then you turn the gas on, you push down, because right now I see it won't turn, it's locked. So you got to push it down, come over to high, and you hold it down for 30 seconds to the minute. What that does is prime the system, gets it going, turn your AC, the refrigerator, this is your temperature setting, like I always turn it all the way over to 7, so it's the coldest. Gas flows through here, into here, and this is your igniter button if it works. Sometimes these are problems. The gas will flow, but this igniter can be a pain. So I usually light it with my long neck lighter and just stick it in the hole and light it. And you can see it. It'll go poof because the gas is waiting on the igniter to light it. And then once I got everything lit up, I'll close the little window. And back here, it reflects off of this very back wall. You can look in there and see it better when it starts getting dark. Then after everything's running for a while, you want to come out here. Don't grab it because it's about 500 degrees because that's the chimney. Because if you look up in here, there's a little hole. This is your exhaust for the gas. It's a chimney. And then it comes through here. You can touch these pipes, but don't grab them because they get hot. If they're warm, your refrigerator is working. It might take a few hours for it to get cool. It ain't going to get cold like your household refrigerator. It's going to get cool. And it takes a little while to get cool. But if you can feel these coals and they're warm, it's running. But I love it. I think it works great because once I put my stuff in there, I usually just put water in there. But it comes out next day, you got cold water, as far as I'm concerned. Then this is information on my trailer. It's regular weight plus its capacity. And with the water, water weighs 8.3 pounds a gallon. I got a 30-gallon tank. 30 times 8.3 is 240 some odd gallons. Plus the 5 I got on the other side. So I've already reduced my cargo weight because all that's figured into your cargo weight. So knock off 400 pounds right off the bat. And then you can put some stuff in there. This thing really hauls a lot because it's got the toy hauler. And then we come, let me go back up here. Ask me how I know this. I got the grates off, but these grates go in here and they just push in and then you turn it and lock. Ask me how I know, because I lost one in South Carolina. I forgot to lock it back after having it open. So I ordered one and got it back. Ordered it from Beckley's in Thermont. Got all the Coleman parts. And like I said, this might be a Somerset. There's a Coleman design. All the Coleman parts will fit. Alright? Beckley, Thermont, Maryland. It's my outside shower. Hot and cold water. And I usually put a little tin out here so I rinse off in peace. My 30 amp connector. And we've already been back here and we've talked about that. The lift system. Let me...
Over the water pump.
Oh, okay. I forgot what... This is my one gripe about this whole thing. This panel is the worst part of this whole camp. The water pump is behind that panel. So to get to it, you can't come in from the top because there's not an access hole to come in from the top where the outside shower is. You got to crawl underneath the dinette and take all of them screws out, pull that panel out, and the water pump is right there. In the winter time, I'll do these are for the chains. I had to go to the hardware store and get a longer chain because on my trailer, a lot of pop-ups just have this lower piece. This one has a really heavy trailer, so I had to get enough links to pass that. But it works great. Don't have any problem with it. Let's see. Distribution. I put a tonneau cover. I talked about the Micro Air Easy Start, which kind of ramps up you instead of getting that surge and go bam with your AC and all that power draw at one time. But the Micro Air Easy Start does, it's a step process. So you get a little amp, little amp, little amp, little amp till it gets that starting what it needs. So I can use that little 2500 watt generator and it's enough power to do a CPAP and the air conditioner all night on a gallon of gas, and that thing runs forever on a gallon. So I'm happy I bought that. It does a really good job. Notes. Water is 8.3 gallons times 30 is 249 pounds. The cassette toilet with its 5 gallon tank is another 41 pounds. So that takes me up to 290 gallons or 290 pounds of water. My do not exceed weight is 1492 for cargo. So knock all the water off, that leaves me 1,200 pounds that I can haul in the pup. My pup, like I said, got a big old frame on it. It's heavy duty because you can put ATV on the front of it. But I'll never haul that kind of weight. Basically what I hear in a cooler is what I haul. So, I'm going to start with the jack because I've seen so many people wanting, I want to flip my axle on my trailer so it's higher off the ground. Okay, that's fine and dandy. You do what you want to your trailer. This thing is so high off the ground already, the frame is up here. That's probably 20 some odd inches. If I have a flat, or if you have a flat after you flip your axle, you need to make sure you got a jack that's going to jack that thing up. I bought this bottle jack, 12 ton from Harbor Freight, and those that don't know how a bottle jack works, it'll screw out to a certain height. I think this will come up to about here. And I can jack it all the way up, still not high enough to pick this camper up because I'm so high off the ground as is. So these are the Lego block levelers. I bought a different set. So what I do, I kept them. And I'll Lego block it, and then I'll put my jack on top of it like that. Now I can reach anything. It'll jack it right up. I got big old truck tires on this thing because that's what it calls for. Stack up about 9 of these Lego blocks, put my bottle jack on top of it, and I can jack it up no problem. So if you flip your axle, make sure that you got a jack that's going to pick it up because you just shifted your jack height. Okay, that's just a helpful hint. I have not a sewer per se. I have drains. I can drain into that big tank that I showed you, or I can use this, which has a hose connector. It plugs into a full service hookup where the sewer line, just like that, and you run a hose in it, and it comes in, and easy peasy, you've got a full hookup. A must have, never plug your camper in until you check your post. So I always plug this in and make sure all the lights are operating that say it is good to go. Because if you plug into a faulty post, you can mess your converter up. Now, some campgrounds have 50 amps, which is this one. Big old plug. Also it's connected. But I'm a 30 amp guy, so I can plug into the 50. Then I plug my 30 amp into the bottom here. What that does on a 50 amp service, you got big watts on both of these to make that 50 amps. Well, when you're wiring your camper a 30, you only use one of these legs, and it somewhere in here it cancels the other leg out, so you can run your 30 amp on a 50 amp service. Now my generator only has a 15 amp plug, but it puts out 2,500 watts. So I plug this into my little inverter, and there's my 30 amp one right here. So sometimes you might need an assortment of these dog bones, and I don't even know what that is. That's some kind of twisty lock plug, but that's my 30 amp here. So you need to be prepared for all scenarios if you're going to a campground, because you might not know what you're going to run into until you're there. But make sure you have a surge protector, because you can go dog bone it, 50 amp, then 30 amp. This has a 30 amp plug on it. Just plug it in and then check your lights, and then you should be good to go. Okay? Then always can use a funnel if you need to put extra water in your holding tank. Have a funnel. Now, ran into this problem on my last camping trip to Gettysburg. I didn't have enough freshwater hose. I had a 25-foot one. That wasn't enough. Off to the campground store I go. Bought me a 50-foot hose and connected to my 25-foot hose. That was plenty to get there. The pedestal is way back on the back side of the lot. The lot was kind of like this. So I had to get to where my camper was 11. By the time I did that, I didn't have enough hose. So I fixed that. Bought a hose, then I bought the caddy, so now I got 75 foot of water hose. I love this thing. Some people hate them, I love them. I got away from the Lego blocks, but I got them in case I'm someplace that this just ain't gonna work. 4.5 inches of lift. I can roll up my camper and roll up like this, and it'll level it off, and then you take your front chuck and go up underneath it, and it cradles your wheel. Or you can pull up on them if you're not good at backing up. You can pull up on it and do the same thing. So you just reverse it, pull up on it, and chuck it from the other side. So you can do it either way, in case you didn't know that, because a lot of people don't tell you all that. You can do it either way. Now this, that's a little rig, but it's nothing to do with it. This right here, little nubby, will drain my fresh water tank when I'm done with it. Always have a tire pressure gauge, some plumbing tape, and another little adapter. No biggie. Let's see. Then this is my crank for the stabilizers. This is the basic tools that you need. So you need hoses enough to cover every scenario. some dog bones, a jack, stabilizer kits. Then we can start getting into actual tools. Every fitting on here, water fitting, is a PEX. So I went on Amazon, ordered me a PEX cutter, a PEX crimper, and it came with the correct size of PEX fitting. So if you spring a leak and can't do nothing about it, you can always do something about it if you got the right tools. If you want to fix it when you get home, I went to Lowe's and got these shark fittings, but they're PEX. So chop it off, put a plug in it, PEX that line off so it ain't leaking everywhere. Get home and fix it. That's about all you got to do with that. But if you don't have the tools with you, you got a flooded camper, and like I said, water is the enemy. It don't matter if you're driving fifth wheel. Water is the enemy. It's good, but it's bad too. Okay? So just make sure you these are tools you really should have regardless of what you think. A PEX crimper, a PEX cutter, a few PEX fittings, and the actual fittings for the pipe. A pair of jumper cables, a socket that will fit your anode rod for changing, an extra 12-volt inline fuse for your battery, this big old gargantuan socket will take the big castle nut off of your wheel so you can redo your bearings if you got to. And I saved the old set of bearings there and still in good shape, so I have an extra set of bearings in this Ziploc bag, already greased, so they are ready to go. Then a couple fittings right here for electronics, a whole box of different automotive fuses. Bought this little set of wrenches, screwdrivers to fit. And this right here I got off of YouTube, not the wrench, but off of YouTube video, because like everybody says, you're driving down the road in a rolling earthquake. Everything in the camp is shaking while you drive. Sometimes you go in your electric box and stuff ain't working right. You might find that your neutral bar where your electric goes in is loose. And if you got it loose, it can stab it short and blow it out the ball, mess up your converter, and just give you more problems than it worth. So this is an inch-pound torque wrench. Now foot-pounds, inch-pounds. So I've been in there and I've tightened up all my electric stuff, all my little wires on the bars to 30 pounds or 30 inch-pounds. To the click. So all my wires are tight. I know they're tight. They ain't coming loose. So they're good. But this is a Harbor Freight. That's your cotter pins for your wheel. So you take that castle nut off. Best to put a new cotter pin in because the other one you just took off is all bent to pieces. Okay? Manual adjusting brakes, which these are. You can use a screwdriver or this tool, which don't costs nothing hardly at Harbor Freight. It's called a brake spoon. And you go, there's a little star wheel in the window in there. If you crawl underneath it with a flashlight, you can look up and there's an access hole. It's kind of oval, big enough for this to go in, and you can see the star wheel. And you just click it, one star at a time. Now, I got this little tidbit of information from watching Dexter, how to adjust, how to adjust manual brakes, manual electronic brakes on your camper. Jack it up, he adjusted it till that wheel locked in place and would no longer move. That means the brake pads are fully pushed out. Now, like I said, this comes from Dexter, the brake people, the axle people. So he adjusted it till the brakes grabbed hold and you could not turn anything. Then he said, back it off 5 clicks, which is take the little star wheel and back off 5 notches. Then you can spin it and it stops after about 3 rotations. So now your brakes are properly adjusted according to Dexter. Now that's what they say, and that's how I got mine set up, because they know more about brakes than me. I know how to change them, I know how to pack the bearings, but as far as adjusting, I needed a little help myself. So I found Dexter's webpage on YouTube and did it. Now, this white lithium grease, remember when we was under the camper, I showed you that little wheel with the pulley and the cable that you can adjust with 3 holes. I spray this on where that cable and that wheel is. I spray that kind of lubricant. It's a white lithium grease. I also spray it on my worm screws on the stabilizer jacks. The big long screws, I spray the white lithium grease. I use this. It cleans up the 7-pin and on the truck, so the pins stay a bit cleaner. Now this, I use a WD-40 silicone quick drying, so it dries quick, and I use that on the arm. There's a pulley here and there's a pulley right here, and when I had it lower, I just reached in here and sprayed it where the cables come up through here, loop around, there's a pulley. Spray that wheel with silicone quick drying, and then spray this wheel right here, and that'll lube them wheels that are inside these the lift arms. There's 2 wheels. Inside your bed rails, as you can see, I don't know if you can see it or not, but this is a wheel. See that nut? There's a wheel on the inside that your bed glides out on. There's also a wheel right here. I shoot them with that same dry silicone lubricant spray. Okay. Let's see, temp gun. I didn't bring it out here, but I have a digital temp gun to shoot at the hubs. That's your first indicator. If your hubs are starting to heat up, if they're pushing, I would say maybe over 150, definitely if you're hitting the 200-degree mark, you need to pull over. Shoot some grease in there if it needs it. It might be enough to get you home, and then figure out what the problem is. Just do it someplace safe. My issue on the other side is my magnet was grabbing and it wasn't letting go, and I shot that hub and it was like 210 degrees. I pulled over. I was in a good spot, so I pulled the wheel, everything off, the brake drum. Everything inside the brake drum looked good except for the magnet. That you could tell that the magnet was grabbing the inside of that hub, creating that friction and that temperature. Okay, now let's see. This high temperature grease, the red stuff, I use that on my cables underneath the camper. I'll crawl up underneath and grease all the exposed cables with this high temp grease. Plus, then I'll spray where it starts to come up in the camper with the lithium spray here. And then the wiffle tree, take the cover off the wiffle tree, grease it with this. And that also comes in tube form, and that's what I use for the burns. So all of it's the high temp red grease. That's what I use. Need a good set of wire cutters to do your, because a lot of them are little wires, but need a wire cutter and some fittings. I got that, some shrink wrap, so I can clip them together and then shrink wrap it up. Now miscellaneous stuff, we use Reflectex in the winter. Of course I ain't got them in there because I didn't want to unpack everything, but they slide. There's a zipper right here where you can take the inside off, well not off but down. It opens the window up where the screen is. Slide the Reflectex into this section on both bunk ends and the dinette, and it starts cooling the inside off so your AC don't have to work so hard. Then we bought Amazon emergency blankets. I think they're made by Articulars or something. Came with a bag, and we put them over the bunk ends, and we have long bungees, but they're real, they're not so stiff it's going to pull your bunk beds down. They got a lot of give, but it's still enough to hold it, so I'll connect it there and connect it down here somewhere. And then we got little itty bitty clips that would clip on to the end here, but fold that reflective blanket over, so you're clipping onto the blanket and then this, so the clip actually never touches your camper scene. That's how we do it. And you cover your bunk ends up and that dinette, and the temperature goes down from, you shoot the electronic temp gun at that ceiling, and I did it in Florida. The ceiling was 118 degrees. I put the emergency blanket up there that I was just talking about, went from 118 to 78. That's how big a difference they make. And you can buy, what they call it, gizmos if you want. Emergency blanket works for me for $21 and some odd cents. But that's me. I'm a little conservative when it comes to spending my money. The way gas prices are, got to cut it somewhere, and it'll do the same thing. So we got the bungees and little clips. Now, I went to Tandy Leather and bought some RZA thread pre-waxed, and I did a saddle stitch if I have a rip. I had a rip over on the other side right here where this seam is. Not a rip, but the seam and the tent part had come loose. I do leather work, so I sat down there on a 5-gallon bucket, did a saddle stitch through the original holes with wax thread. You can't even tell it was there. Now, I say saddle stitch. I'm going to do a video on it, but I just haven't got myself together enough to do it. This is a stitch. It's sewn by a machine. If I pull that one stitch right there, this whole seam's going to unravel. When you repair it, do a saddle stitch. Saddle stitch, you sew in a loop. You come in and go out the same hole like this and tighten it down. So you're doing in and out like this. It's locking a stitch. So if I cut that stitch on a saddle stitch, that's the only stitch that's coming out, because the rest of these are locked in place. Sewing machine call it a lock stitch, but it's not. It's sort of a lock stitch, but saddle stitch is a lock stitch. I can cut it here and here, and that seam right there is going to stay intact, because that's just the way that stitch works. And I'm going to do a video on that with some leather, and I'm going to show you the difference between a sewing machine stitch and a saddle stitch. And you can sit down and make your own repair. It just takes a little time, that's all. And let's see, some kit tape. We had very little tape on ours. This was in good shape when we got it.
A little by the door over there.
Yeah, so we got a little bit by the door, but other than that, the door is... And then, of course, a lot of people... I have a rolled roof up here, but some people have panels on the front and back. You got to make sure you caulk them. It's preventive maintenance. If you let it go, then your top rots. You really got nobody to blame but yourself. Caulk it. If it needs it, caulk it. If it don't need it, maybe caulk it every 2 years. Just caulk it, that thing, you know, because water is your enemy. Well, I hope that answered a bunch of questions, because every one of them came up somewhere in that Facebook thread about what I do with my pop-up. How does this work? Hopefully I explained it good enough. Got some stills we'll probably put on that group, and then with the explanation of what it is. But the video will be posted on YouTube under Marshall PC Wabash. And I'll figure out a title for it and put that on the on the Facebook thing, and then you can come over and see me. So like, share, and subscribe, and I might see you on the road.